It's Saturday, November 20th, and for the past couple of days, I've been watching the law, our law in action. There's the Ahmaud Arbery case, where the defendants are pleading not guilty. Then you got the Kyle Rittenhouse case, where he's pleading not guilty. He's pleading self-defense. And just in, the jury agreed with him. And then you've got what's going on with Congress and those who are ignoring the subpoenas. And Steve Bannon ranting about how he's got rights and everything. But there was a little-known case that was going on in upstate New York, in the town of Lewiston. In this case, a former man from Lewiston pleaded guilty to rape and sex abuse in 2019 and was sentenced to 8 years probation, no jail time. This man, Christopher Belter, the other punishment leveled at him was the fact that he had to register as a sex offender. Now this man raped and admitted raping 4 14-year-old girls. So maybe the fact that he pleaded guilty is the reason he didn't get any jail time. And maybe if these guys in these other big cases would plead guilty, maybe they wouldn't get any jail time either. But I don't understand how a guy who rapes 4 women, 4 young girls, can get away with 8 years probation. And even though when he admitted his guilt, he pleaded with the court and said he knew he was wrong, and upon his reflection he feels awful and terrible, and he said a lot of other things that indicated that he was reformed, that he had recognized what he had done wrong, and he admitted it, and he felt terrible, and he wanted everybody to excuse his awful behavior. Now, I don't believe that you can excuse awful behavior like that and not give somebody some prison time. I'm not saying that he should go free. I'm not saying that 8 years probation isn't a penalty of sorts, but it's a ridiculous penalty. I don't really know the full scope of what'll be part of the probation, let's say. I don't know if he's going to be housebound or anything like that for 8 years, but he's not going to jail. Belter also said he will never recover from the scar of the evil things that he did that night. Now, some of his victims were in the court for his sentencing. And when they learned that he wasn't going to serve any time behind bars, they were very upset, more than upset. Horrified is more like the word. And they were probably more horrified when Judge Murphy, the judge in this particular case, decided that prison time would not be appropriate for Belter. How could they come to that conclusion? How could he come to such a conclusion that prison time is not acceptable, is not appropriate? The man raped 4 women. If prison time is inappropriate for that, what has this country come to? What is this judge thinking? He's giving everybody a license to go out and do something awful and then hopefully come into his courtroom and then he will assign prison time. That's the most ridiculous thing you could ever hear. You victimize 4 young women and prison time isn't appropriate? And the judge, who admitted there was great pain in this case, and there was great harm. There were multiple crimes committed in this case, he said. But he also said, it seems to me that a sentence that involves incarceration or partial incarceration is not appropriate, and therefore I am sentencing you to probation. And then he went into a long list of all the things that Belter was required to do during his probation, this list of rules. And he warned him, he said, if you break any of these rules, you will be in big trouble. You will end up incarcerated. Remember, you have a sword hanging over your head, he said, and it's going to be hanging over your head for 8 years. So I ask you, is having an imaginary sword hanging over your head for 8 years punishment enough for raping 4 women? I don't think so. I don't think so. You know, the interesting thing is he's got to register for being a sex offender. Did you know that they have 3 levels of sex offender? And they don't know which level he's going to be at? Level 1, level 2, or level 3? And one of the attorneys for one of the young women that was raped described Belter as privileged, coming from money, and he is white. And he made a point of saying he is white. Now, he was sentenced as an adult appropriately, but for an adult to admit those crimes and get away with them, that is not right. Meanwhile, the defense attorney said he has remorse. I don't think remorse cuts it in this case. And I don't think that Belter deserved less because he had money or because he's white. If anything, that he should have gotten more. One of the rules that Belter has to abide by is no internet access unless given permission by the probation officer, because he is a known pervert and he could be watching porn on the internet. So they've taken that away from him. And that might be the toughest part of his punishment. No internet access. So that's what I've got to say today, and I think it's a terrible situation that the law in this country is so inconsistent, and it takes so much time to come to a conclusion on guilt and innocence. So I leave you with that, and I'll see you in the morning.